The room was quiet, filled only with the low hum of the alien ship as it drifted through deep space. Commander Ethan Hale sat on the edge of his narrow bed, cleaning dust from his gloves. He had been a soldier for most of his life, but serving aboard an alien vessel still felt strange. The walls curved slightly, glowing with soft blue lines that changed with the ship's mood. Humans were guests here, allies after a long and painful war. Ethan was tired. The mission briefing earlier that day had been heavy, filled with talk of borders, fragile peace, and enemies that still hid in the dark. He had been told to rest. Tomorrow would bring more negotiations, more careful words spoken between species that barely trusted each other. He stood up and placed his gloves on the small table near the wall. As he turned, the door to his quarters slid open without warning. Ethan froze. Standing in the doorway was a female alien. He recognized her species at once. She was a Lyrian, tall, slender, with pale silver-blue skin and large, reflective eyes that caught the light. Thin lines of light moved slowly along her arms and neck, a sign of emotion among her people. She stepped inside without speaking. The door closed behind her. Ethan's hand moved by instinct toward the weapon at his side, then stopped. He was on an allied ship. Attacking an envoy would start another war. "Can I help you?" he asked carefully. The Lyrian looked at him for a long moment. Then calmly, she reached up and removed the layered fabric that covered her shoulders. The material fell to the floor like water. She continued, removing the protective outer garments her species wore in public environments. Ethan's heart began to race, not with desire but with confusion and alarm. "Hey, wait," he said, stepping back. "You shouldn't, this isn't," she finished and stood there, unarmed and unprotected by her people's standards. Then she smiled. It was not playful, not teasing. It was gentle, almost relieved. Ethan felt like the ground had shifted under his feet. "This is not appropriate," he said, his voice tight. "If this is some kind of please," she said softly, finally speaking. Her voice was smooth but careful, as if each word mattered. "Do not be afraid, I mean no harm." "Then why are you in my room?" he asked. "And why did you just do that?" She tilted her head slightly. The lines of light along her skin slowed. "Because this is the place of safety," she replied. "And because you are the one who does not strike the unarmed." Ethan stared at her. "What?" "My name is Seelan," she said. "I am an envoy of the Lyrian clusters, and by our law I have placed myself under your protection." Ethan rubbed his face with his hands. "I think there's been a serious misunderstanding." She stepped closer, stopping several feet away. She made no threatening move. "3 cycles ago," Seelan said, "during the battle near the shattered moon of Vierks, a human strike team entered a collapsing station. They were ordered to retreat. One human did not." Ethan felt a cold weight in his chest. "He turned back," she continued. "He carried an injured Lyrian child to an escape pod. He shielded her with his own body when the station broke apart." Ethan remembered the mission. He remembered the smoke, the alarms, the screaming metal. He remembered picking someone up without thinking. He had not known who the child was. He had only seen fear. "That human was you," Seelan said. Ethan swallowed. "I didn't know." "You were not meant to," she replied. "But we knew, and under our law, a life saved without command creates a bond of trust." She gestured to her uncovered form. "To stand before you without defense means I believe you will not harm me, even if it costs you." Ethan let out a slow breath. "You can put your clothes back on." Seelan looked surprised. "I have already made the gesture." "You've made your point," he said, "but humans don't do things this way." She studied him. "You are uncomfortable." "Yes," he said honestly. "Because where I come from, walking into someone's room like this usually means trouble." She considered that, then nodded. "Then I apologize for causing distress. That was not my intent." She bent to retrieve her garments. Ethan turned away, giving her privacy. When he faced her again, she was fully dressed. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why not go to your own leaders?" Seelan's eyes darkened slightly. Because my own leaders are being watched. And because there are those among the Allied Council who would rather see my people disappear quietly. Ethan's jaw tightened. You're saying there's a threat? Yes, she said, and you are not officially assigned to protect me, which makes you the safest choice. He laughed once without humor. That's a terrible reason. For us, she said, it is the best. The ship suddenly shuddered, the lights flickered. An alert tone echoed faintly through the walls. Seelan's eyes widened. They are here. Ethan was already moving. He grabbed his weapon and checked the charge. Who? Those who hunt us, she said. They do not wear flags. The ship's internal communicator crackled. All personnel security breach on Deck 7. Unknown hostiles. Deck 7. Ethan's quarters were on Deck 8. Too close. Stay behind me, he said. Seelan hesitated. I have no weapon. I know, he replied. That's why. The door slid open again, this time forced. Metal groaned as it bent inward. Ethan took position, body angled to shield Seelan. His mind was calm now. This was familiar. Clear threat, clear response. Figures moved in the hallway, tall, armored shapes with no visible markings. They moved with purpose, silent and fast. Ethan fired. The corridor erupted in light and sound. One attacker fell. Another returned fire, energy bolts burning lines into the wall. Seelan watched, stunned. Humans were smaller than many species, less armored, but Ethan moved with precision, placing himself between danger and the unarmed without hesitation. When one attacker tried to rush past him, Ethan stepped forward instead of back, slamming the figure into the wall and disabling its weapon. Security forces arrived moments later, weapons raised. The attackers retreated, melting into smoke and emergency doors. Silence returned, broken only by the ship's alarms winding down. Ethan lowered his weapon slowly. Seelan looked at him with something new in her eyes, not relief this time, respect. You did not hesitate, she said. No, Ethan replied. I didn't. Security officers entered the room. Questions were asked. Reports were taken. Seelan was escorted away under heavy guard. Before she left, she turned back to Ethan. Our law will remember this, she said. And so will I. Ethan watched the door close behind her. He sat down heavily on the bed, the events of the night crashing over him all at once. He had thought this posting would be quiet. He had been very wrong. Somewhere deep within the ship, plans were already changing. And across the galaxy, unseen eyes had begun to watch the human who did not turn away when someone walked into his room, unarmed, and trusted him with everything. The ship did not sleep after the attack. Lights stayed bright in the corridors, and security drones moved like silent insects along the walls. Word spread quickly among the mixed crews. An unmarked force had breached an Allied vessel. That alone was dangerous. But what made everyone uneasy was how fast it had happened, and how close they had come to an envoy. Ethan Hale sat in a secured briefing room with his hands folded in front of him. Across the table, 3 officers watched him carefully: a human captain, a Lyrian security commander, and a neutral council observer from another species. The air felt heavy, thick with caution. You acted without orders, the human captain said, though his tone carried no anger. They were meters from an unarmed envoy, Ethan replied. Orders or not, that's my line. The Lyrian commander studied him with bright, unblinking eyes. You protected Seelan as if she were your own. She was under threat, Ethan said. That's enough. The observer's translator hummed softly. Human logic remains consistent, it said. Emotion mixed with principle. Ethan did not respond. He was thinking about Seelan, about the way she had looked at him after the attack. Not fear, something deeper. The meeting ended without punishment. Officially, the incident was recorded as a security failure, not a personal one. Unofficially, Ethan felt the weight of attention settle on him. He was escorted back to temporary quarters, this time closer to the security core. Across the ship, Seelan stood alone in a guarded chamber. Her people had sent urgent messages, their light signals flashing rapidly across the walls. Concern, alarm, approval. You placed yourself at great risk, one elder said through the projection. Human spaces are unpredictable. I placed myself where trust mattered, Seelan replied calmly, and I was not wrong. The attackers were silent hunters, another elder said. They moved between alliances. We believed they would wait. They never wait, Seelan said. That is why I came. The elders exchanged glances. You chose the human, one said slowly. Yes. Then our law applies, the elder replied. If he continues to protect you, the bond deepens. Seelan closed her eyes briefly. I know. Elsewhere, Ethan was awakened hours later by a soft chime at his door. He reached for his weapon, then paused as the door slid open under authorization. Seelan stepped inside, fully dressed, flanked by two guards who stopped at the threshold. I asked to speak with you, she said. Alone, the guards hesitated, then stepped back. The door closed. Ethan exhaled slowly. You shouldn't be moving without an escort. I have one, she said gently. You, he gave her a tired look. That's not how humans define escort duty. Then we will define it together, she replied. She stood across from him, posture formal. The attack was meant to silence me before the council session tomorrow. I carry proof that the hunters are being funded by members within the alliance. Ethan's expression hardened. You're saying this came from the inside? Yes, she said. If I speak publicly without protection, I will not survive the cycle. And you think I can change that, he said. I think humans change things by standing in the wrong place at the right time, Seelan said. That earned a small smile from him, despite everything. The next day, the council chamber filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Floating platforms adjusted heights and gravity fields so no one species dominated the space. The air shimmered with translation fields. Ethan stood at the edge of the chamber, officially present as security only. Unofficially, many eyes followed him. Stories traveled fast. Seelan stepped forward when her turn came. She spoke calmly, clearly, projecting images and data across the chamber. Ship logs, energy signatures, financial trails that pointed not outward but inward. Murmurs spread like ripples. Then the lights dimmed. For a fraction of a second, the chamber fell silent. Ethan moved before thought caught up. He crossed the distance to Seelan in long strides, placing himself beside her just as the first shot rang out. Energy scorched the air where she had been standing. Chaos erupted. Guards raised weapons. Delegates scattered. The attackers revealed themselves not as soldiers but as hired shadows hidden among the staff. Ethan stayed where he was. He did not fire wildly. He did not shout. He moved with purpose, creating space, drawing attention. He took hits meant for others, armor flaring as it absorbed the force. Seelan watched him fight, understanding something new. Humans were not fearless. They chose fear and moved anyway. Security overwhelmed the attackers at last. Smoke cleared. Silence returned, broken by shaken breaths. The council reconvened hours later. This time, Seelan was not alone. Ethan stood openly at her side, no longer just a guard, but a statement. The evidence held. Arrests were ordered. Alliances shifted. When it was over, Seelan turned to Ethan. By our law, she said softly, you have now stood between me and death twice. And by human law, Ethan replied, you're a protected witness. Guess that makes us even. She smiled, not in relief, not in ritual, but in something close to understanding. The galaxy took notice, not because of weapons, not because of power, but because once again a human had stepped forward without being asked and refused to move aside. And this time, everyone was watching. The days after the council attack felt heavier than battle. The ship moved forward through space, but everyone aboard felt the weight of what had happened. Arrests were still ongoing across multiple systems. Messages flowed non-stop between governments. Trust, once broken, did not heal easily. Ethan Hale stood near a wide viewing panel looking out at the stars. He had been ordered to rest, but rest did not come. His armor was marked, his body sore, but his mind was clear in a way it had never been before. He knew without doubt that his life had changed. Behind him, the door opened softly. "You do not rest when ordered," Seelan said. "That makes two of us," Ethan replied without turning. She stepped beside him, her hands folded calmly. The lights along her skin were steady, no longer flashing with fear or urgency. They reflected quiet focus. "The Council has accepted my evidence," she said. "The Hunters' network is being dismantled." "That's good," Ethan said, "but it won't end clean." "No," she agreed, "it never does." They stood in silence for a moment, watching distant stars drift past. "You know," Ethan said slowly, "where I come from, heroes don't usually feel like this." Seelan looked at him. "How do they feel?" "Tired," he said, "and worried about what comes next." She nodded. "That is how leaders feel among my people." Ethan turned to face her. "I'm not a leader." "You are," she said simply. "You just do not command with words." Soon after, a formal summons arrived. Not an order, a request. The council chamber filled again, but this time the atmosphere was different. There was no panic, no hidden weapons, no flickering lights, only tension and attention. Seelan stood before the gathered representatives. Ethan stood behind her, not as a guard, but as a visible presence. A human, unarmored, unhidden. "My people have a law," Seelan said, her voice carrying clearly. "When trust is proven through action, it must be honored publicly." Images appeared around the chamber, records of the battle near the shattered moon, the rescue, the attack aboard the ship, the council assault. "This human," she continued, "acted without command, without promise of reward, and without regard for his own survival. Twice." The chamber remained silent. "Because of this," Seelan said, "the Lyrian clusters formally recognize humanity as guardians under our highest covenant." A wave of murmurs spread through the chamber. Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Seelan," he said quietly, "you didn't have to." She turned slightly, meeting his eyes. "Yes, I did." The observer species requested clarification. "What does this covenant entail?" Seelan answered without hesitation. "Mutual defense, shared intelligence, and recognition that when a human stands between danger and the helpless, the galaxy should pay attention." The vote followed. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity's position shifted in that moment, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as something rarer, trusted. Afterward, as the chamber emptied, Ethan felt the weight of countless stares. Some were wary, some were respectful, some were afraid. He did not like any of them. Later, alone again in his quarters, Ethan removed his jacket and sat down heavily. The room felt too quiet, too small for what had happened. There was a soft knock. "You don't knock," he said. "I am learning," Seelan replied as she entered. She stood near the door this time, giving space. "The council asked what you want," she said. Ethan laughed softly. "That's a dangerous question." "They asked me to ask you." He thought for a long moment. "I want fewer people hurt because someone chose fear over action." Seelan's lights glowed gently. "That is not a small want. Never said it was." The ship changed course days later, heading toward a human-controlled sector. News traveled ahead of them: protests, support, fear. Ethan watched Earth grow larger on the display, feeling something twist inside him. He had left as a soldier. He was returning as something undefined. A welcoming delegation waited. Cameras, officials, crowds. Seelan stood beside him as they disembarked. The noise was overwhelming. "Does this trouble you?" she asked. "Humans don't like being watched," he said. "We just get used to it." A reporter shouted a question. "Commander Hale, why did you risk your life for an alien envoy?" Ethan stopped walking. He turned, facing the cameras. "Because she walked into my room unarmed," he said simply, "and trusted me not to be a monster." The broadcast went everywhere. Some praised him, some criticized him, but across the stars something shifted. Months passed. The hunters did not vanish, but they weakened. Systems once silent began sharing warnings. Joint patrols formed. Humans stood beside aliens who once feared them. Ethan was offered promotions. He declined most of them. Celine remained close, not by law now, but by choice. She observed. She learned. She spoke with human leaders and sometimes with ordinary people. One evening, as they walked through a quiet human city, she paused. "Your world is loud," she said. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "But it grows on you." She looked at him. "I am glad I chose the wrong place at the right time," he smiled. "Funny, that's what humans do best." Far away in places unseen, stories were told, not about weapons or fleets, but about a moment, a door opening. Clothes dropped, not in invitation but in trust, a smile not of desire but of hope, and a human who did not look away. HFY, because humanity was never about being the strongest. It was about being there when it mattered.